Hello everyone, welcome back to another NR format video. So today we're going to be doing a deck showcase where we first look at the deck list and then get into some replays. For this episode we have Hydralander Mill. So Hydralander has been around the format for a long time, but has never really found itself as part of a meta-relevant strategy. People have tried experimenting with it in like machine decks, but nothing really worked. Because the restriction on Hydralander means that you can't really play it as part of a consistent deck, which hurts the meta viability of that deck. So the way I approached it is this deck not only utilizes Hydralander as a boss monster, but also takes advantage of its secondary effect to mill 3 cards. So we're playing one copy each of normal monsters, the Killer Needle and the Shiny Black Sea Squatter, to pair with our 2 copies of Goki Pole. We're also playing the Infinite Antlion and the Battle Wasp Arbalest. For the plant package, we have Saracenian, Biblisp, and Drosophilium with the 3 copies of Predaplanning. For the millers, we have 1 copy each of Merly and Havness alongside the 1 Sulliek, and we're also playing 1 copy of Card Trooper because you can do funny shenanigans like popping your own Card Trooper with a Hydralander to get a draw. We're also playing the Nemesis Keystone, especially because you can banish the Keystone with either the Lizardos or the Selene Snapper, and you can also banish other monsters in your graveyard with the Selene Snapper and then recur them with the Nemesis Keystone. So this is basically a recursion engine so that we never run out of the other kinds of monsters. We can shuffle back the insect, plant, and reptiles, but we can't shuffle back the other ones, so this is how we do that. We're also playing the 1 copy of Flower Dino to shuffle back all of these traps cards that banish themselves, so the Primite Howl, the backup team, and the Paleos, and the 1 copy of High Rate Draw. For the Paleos, of course, we're playing the 3 Dinomishus and the 3 Morella. You can play Olenoids if you can find room for it, but these 6 are usually more than enough to get you through the game. We're of course playing the 3 copies of Diceit. I already explained Predaplanning. We're playing the 1 copy of High Rate Draw, which you can send with Morella. We're also playing 3 copies of Backup Team. Now in my normal mill list, I play just the 1 copy. However, in this deck list, we absolutely need to find Hydralander, and Backup Team is just so good at doing that. So we also don't want to be drawing too many monsters, and if we do, we want to put them back. So just having access to a backup team at all times is crucial for the viability of this deck. We're also playing the 3 copies of Howl to pair with our normal monsters, and of course the 3 copy of Vistudi of Woe, which is basically the essence of this deck. For the extra deck, we're playing the 1 Fuko because Predaplanning can make everything level 1, so we play the 1 Fuko. It can also stall for a turn if you need it to. The 3 rank 2 XYZ monsters, pretty standard. The 2 rank 4s, Malevolent Sin, can be replenished with the Woe, and we can also the Wonky Quartet is basically just wonky. Like you absolutely play this, you don't play any monsters at all, and you fetch them out of the deck very quickly. So Wonky almost guaranteed blows up on the opponent's field, unless you're also playing against a deck that runs a lot of back row. We're playing the 1 copy of Dryas and pairing it with the Gardna. So Dryas can also blank a battle phase by summoning the Gardna, which has the effect that you can half the damage and then end the battle phase. So pretty good for survival. We're playing the 1 copy of Pentastack to get over defense position monsters, the 1 copy of Geonator, and I'm basically playing this to protect our Hydralander. So that sometimes comes up. And also, you know, maybe if we want to steal like a boss monster from the opponent, we can do that as well. The 2 copies of Lizardos, 1 copy of Triple Burst, and 2 copies of Selene Snapper. You can cut down the Selene Snapper to 1 copy, but I found that whenever 1 copy of Selene Snapper gets banished, you basically have to wait 2 turns before you can replenish that Selene Snapper. So it's just better to have a 2nd copy so that you can immediately go into it when you need it and get your engine back online. So that's just personal preference. You can cut one of these copies and play like something like a Cat Shark instead of it. Other considerations for this deck, you can play 1 copy of Magic Colloidal Soul. I don't, because I want to max out on the insects and plants. And I want to make sure that everything I play in this deck does move towards the end goal of recursion and survival. So I couldn't find room for soul, but you can absolutely like cut maybe even one copy of these Hydralanders and play one copy of soul if you want to. Anyways, that's it for the deck list. Let's get into the replays. Alright, so our first game we're playing against a Infernoble Rock Pile. And they've chosen to go first. We'll just speed through this. So they find an Analyzer, set 2 and pass. We don't have access to a Hydralander just yet, and in this version of the deck, I was only playing one copy of Backup Team. So this is when I realized that it was really difficult for me to actually find the Hydralander. They special the Zeta, summon their gadget, search for a Roland, go battle phase. Goalkeeper trigger, summons a normal monster, pops their Zeta. So all we're doing right now is just trying to survive and load up the graveyard for when we draw into a Hydralander. So we don't find Hydralander on this draw. We special summon the Biblis, special summon the Drosophilium, go for the Selene Snapper, immediately gets hit with the Dynamicious. Now, Sully searches a Merly, normal the Merly, hit a Goki pull, add the Arbalest for next turn, set the Basidiafo, get in for 800 and pass. Opponent draws an Analyzer for turn. Fortunately they miss, but they do have the Gigantis. I steal the Gigantis, but I don't know they have a second Roland in hand, so they destroy their own Gigantis, which pops the whole field. End phase, we finally recycle our Selene Snapper. They will add a Bowline. We still don't have any access to Hydralander, unfortunately. So at this point, we're still just playing a normal Insect Mill deck. Pop their monster. Boost our own monster, get in for as much damage as possible. Summon the Voe, they'll summon a Paleo. Gonna go for a Selene Snapper, and I see that they're low on life points, so I just go for the Wonky. Wonky doesn't hit any monsters, so needs to hit 3 monsters on the opponent's standby phase to blow up. Activates and hits only 2, so now we're in trouble because one more monster in this Wonky will blow up on our side of the field. And to make it even worse, they summoned their own Wonky. So this other Wonky has 4 monsters under it as well, so we're in big trouble. They also summon their Bowline, get over our Paleo, and then pop our Selene Snapper. Get a search with Roland in the end phase for a Red Lotus. Standby phase, I activate the big Wonky first. We hit the back row, but the other Wonky does blow up, unfortunately. We don't die from it though. However, this Wonky is still too big for me to get over, but it still has 4 monsters in it, so if it hits one more monster, it will kill the opponent. And well, unfortunately for me, it doesn't hit any monsters, and now I'm in trouble again. They summon the Red Lotus, they summon the Gadget, get over my Selene Snapper. Pass turn. We still don't find Hydralander, by the way, and the Wonky does hit a monster, so that's the end of that. That game basically got taken over by the Wonky, but more importantly, we couldn't find Hydralander, so hopefully after the change to with the number of copies of Backup Team, we can find more Hydralander. Alright, so here I won the coin toss and went first against another Tindangle pile, so this is considered one of the tier 1 decks right now. So we open 5 back rows, so we just set and pass. The opponent hasn't opened that well, they've opened too many monsters, so that is the problem with the flip deck. They'll just set a needle ceiling though, so it is dangerous. We activate the Preda Planning, send the Biblis, add the Drosophilium. We hit a 5 on the Dicet, which hits a Sulliek and gets us a Merly. So now we summon the Biblisp, Tribute Summon to summon the Drosophilium. They will hit our board with the Needle Sealing. We now summon the Merly, mill 3. We trigger a Goki Pull. We summon the Visteria Bow, go for Dryas, and probably go for a triple burst, yeah? Get over the set monster. So no access to Hydralander just yet. Just set one and pass, but we're not in a bad position, even though we don't have Hydralander access. The opponent gets a Rhino Warrior for turn. They will summon Gravekeeper's Headmaster, by the way, and reset their Gravekeeper's Spy. So this is the synergy between the two decks. They'll also reset their Intruder. End phase, we activate another backup team, hit a huge 5, get an Arbalest, draw a Visteria Bow for turn. So basically, I have 2 copies of Hydralander in the graveyard, or 3 copies actually. So my plan is to add one back with a Herald of the Pure Light, and then go for a Selene Snapper to banish the other. Or, you know, just find some way to get the other out of the graveyard as well, and then summon that, then summon that Hydralander. So the opponent sees it coming, and they're like, yep, that's too much for me, so they just scoop. Alright, so this next replay, we are playing against a Fiend Pile in the NRJP Daily. Our opponent went first. They set 2 back row, summoned the Fiendish Rhino Warrior. We do have the Hydralander, but we don't have the requirements for it just yet. So we did find a copy of backup team. We'll use it now. Fix up our hand. Set our back row and pass. Still can't summon the Hydralander. The opponent will flip up the Toddler. We'll chain the Havness. Havness only hit 1 monster, by the way, which was the Merly, so... The opponent will set another back row. End phase, we will set back our backup team. Now, we use the Preda Planning, which is also really good at loading up the graveyard. We hit a 4 on the dice, so now we do have the fodder for the Hydralander. So we'll first go for the backup team just to find more copies of Hydralander. And by the way, you can summon as many Hydralanders as you want. There is no restriction on it. So we'll drop the first Hydralander, immediately gets hit with the Sinful Soils of Spoils of Slumber. So it basically Book of Moon. Now we drop the second Hydralander. Unfortunately, I can't really destroy either of these monsters because if I can't destroy the Fiendish Rhino Warrior because I don't want it to float. And I can't destroy the Queen Azamina because then it will trigger the Mirage Mirror Force in the graveyard. So we go battle phase, just punch over the Queen Azamina. The opponent now summons a Soul Scissors, pops over 1 copy of Hydralander. Now I make a very crucial mistake here. So they summon a Paleo, right? And here, I think that, okay, if I destroy the Soul Scissors, they basically have no way to recur it. It's gonna get banished. I attack into it and it doesn't blow up because there's a Fiendish Rhino Warrior in the field. If I had just attacked into the Dinomicious, as you're gonna find out, this whole game would have been completely different. Because if I attack into the Dinomicious, they don't have any way to get over my defense position Hydralander with just these 2 monsters. They draw into a Queen Azamina, by the way, so their hand was a brick. But because of my mistake, they have 2 level 2 monsters and they are able to go for the Mannequin Cat. Summons back the Drosophilium. Now they summon a Labyrinth Archfiend. Set a Fair Welcome Labyrinth, destroy our Orbital Hydralander, now summon back the Soul Scissors, get rid of the Dryas, punch over the Drosophilium for a lot of damage. We protect our life points with the Vogue, but now we're on the back foot. The other thing is, this Archfiend is huge. So I was thinking like, okay, maybe I can summon this Wisteria Woe and go for like a Wonky, but this Archfiend is so huge that even if the Wonky comes back to our field on the opponent's turn, this Labyrinth Archfiend is just gonna beat over it and then hit us for game, basically. So that one misplay basically cost us the game. We do hang on for a little bit. We're gonna go for a Selene Snapper here to pop the back row. But I really didn't want to trigger this Fiendish Rhino Warrior. So we just hit over the Labyrinth Archfiend for some damage. See if we can survive for as long as we can. Add back our Nemesis Keystone. Set back the Wisteria Woe. They draw into a Talons of Shuralain, by the way. So think back. If I didn't let them go for a Mannequin Cat, their next 2 draws were completely dead. And I would have easily been able to just attack for game. I could have banished the Rhino Warrior with the Dinomicious and then attack for game. So now we're struggling. We don't find a Hydralander with the backup team. I go for a Dryas to try and survive. We go for a Lizardos here to try and draw into a Hydralander, but they have the Talons of Shuralain, which prevents the draw. We normal summon the Antlion so we can get over the Soul Scissors, but they're now able to send the Diablosis or the Diabolica, which adds back the Fiendish Rhino Warrior. We summon back the Selene Snapper, reset the Wisteria Woe. They draw a House of Wax for turn. Activate the Sinful Spoils of Slumber on their own monster to trigger the Archfiend in hand, by the way. Archfiend sends a Mirage Mirror Force. But we summon the Wisteria Woe, banishing 2 trap cards, which reduces the attack of the Archfiend, so they can't get over my Selene Snapper anymore. So they are now forced to pass turn. Really hoping for a Hydralander here somehow. Unfortunately, we didn't find it. Normal summon the Card Trooper, and there goes the last copy of Hydralander. By the way, if you're wondering, right, if I drew a Hydralander here, I already had 2 copies of Hydralander in the graveyard. Like, how was I going to summon my Hydralander? I was basically going to use the Selene Snapper to banish one of the Hydralanders to destroy the back row. That is how I would have been able to get over the restriction of Hydralander. Anyways, can't do that anymore. Have to just end turn. Yeah, and at this point, we just didn't have any more gas. They draw a punishment for turn, but they have more than enough. They can just summon the Haggard Lizardos, reduce the attack of my monster. I dodge it, and over here, we do have one last hope, which is that if we were able to find a Infinite Antlion, we could have lived, but unfortunately, we didn't, so the Satyrian blocks 1 attack, but it's not enough, and that is game. So this game will chalk up to mostly my own fault and my own misplays, but the deck overall still showed its resilience. Like, we were still able to claw it back a little bit, even though we made a big misplay. Alright, so this last game we are against Bookamoon, who is one of the better players in the format. And this is just to show the power of the fact that when you play a rogue deck like this, the opponent doesn't know what to expect. So we normal summon the Card Trooper. We were playing some Zodiacs at this time. I was experimenting with like some sort of a Zodiac engine to just load up the graveyard with names. I ended up cutting them in the final build. So he's gonna go for the Toy Vendor. Discards the Tiswern. They find a standoff. We just skip to the turn. So they have a cluster with a Tiswern banish. So that cluster is live. End phase, we go for a Morella, dump a Sulliek. Sulliek adds a Merly. We normal summon the Merly, hit a monster. So now we have more than enough monsters in the graveyard. We go for the Haggard Lizardos, and we drop the Orbital Hydralander. The opponent does panic a bit. They immediately hit the Hydralander with Cluster. but it's too late. We destroy it and they scoop. So it's just to show the power of, playing a rogue deck. He didn't see it coming. Alright, so we're here with the closing thoughts. I do think this is a solid rogue deck in terms of the meta. Orbital Hydralander is just such a powerful boss monster that whenever it hits the field, it usually just ends the game because non-targeting quick effect destruction just snowballs so quickly that most decks cannot keep up with it, and you do end up winning those games. However, there is also the element of this deck is more powerful when your opponent doesn't see it coming. Like when they think they're up against a simple insect mill deck, they won't really target your deck the way they would if they knew they were against a Hydralander deck specifically. So it does become weaker when your opponent finds out what you're up to. So I think the rogue classification is pretty good. For the deck list itself, I think this deck is pretty much perfect for what it's trying to do. As I said before in the deck profile, maybe you can play Magic Colloidal Soul if you can fit more copies of it. Make some room for it, maybe play more Paleos. The extra deck seemed fine. I didn't really summon Geonator because most of the time whenever I would summon Hydralander, my opponents would either scoop or they just wouldn't really have anything that I was scared by, that I would need to go for Geonator. So yeah. Anyways, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Adios.